Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we are going to recap the ADCC European Trials, Middle Eastern and African Trials that took place this weekend, the second qualifier for this ADCC season. We are also going to recap Fight to Win 260 Florida that happened in Tampa, Florida. That was Keith Krikorian versus Jason Val, a rematch from an earlier event. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host.
Miranda.
Hey, Miranda.
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Had some good pre-show. We are here in the U.S. on the East Coast with a federal holiday, so doing the show midday, which is a great change. Gives me a little more time to edit.
You get us a little brighter and a little less tired.
Except we both
sleepy.
already trained today on our earlier sessions, so is what it is. So as far as news goes this week,
you didn't leave the flamas in the picture, did you?
I think they're probably in the flamas. Move them a little bit. The spicy snack of the podcast.
The spicy snack.
I don't think there's really much news this week as
think
far
so.
as anything. Really, trials, when ADCC Trials happens, that's kind of the majority of the news. A lot of new faces and names that we are somewhat familiar with and really not familiar with, which is always the fun when it comes to trials and breaking down and kind of recapping the trials. Also, later in the show, we are going to preview NEO6, Arena Grappling, and we'll probably spend the majority of time previewing this. One of the Enigma's running another invitational.
Yep.
They have a main event, which is Reese LaFleur versus Keith Krikorian. That's another rematch. And they have a $10,000 middleweight bracket with some really, really exciting names in it.
Yep.
So we're going to preview that at the end of the show. But do we have is there no news, really? It was really just a quiet week.
Yeah, I think it was a quiet week.
Let me peruse real quick.
You have to peruse to make sure nothing weird
happened. We could have done this in the hour we were doing pre-show.
But we weren't thinking about this. We were thinking about we were going
through all the European trials.
We wanted to see who won, who lost, why they won, why they lost.
Yeah. Some announcements this week. We have GrappleFest 18. We've announced again. Keith is really active recently. On GrappleFest 18 on March 2nd, we have Keith Krikorian versus Dominic Mejia. That will be super exciting to preview when we get closer to it. And then I feel like everything has just been Keith. He is back on the competition circuit in a big way in the lead up to West Coast Trials.
Yeah.
And the dude places in the last 4 or 5 trials. Like it would be shocking to not see him have a phenomenal run there. Looks like Margalian News is back in the country. He's going to take a match at the UFC Fight Pass Invitational coming up soon. When is that? That's not this week.
It's coming soon.
It's coming soon.
I think it's in 2 weeks because I think it was far enough away that I didn't add it to the previews, but it was close enough that I remember being like, should I write it down?
Because we saw Craig Jones this weekend cornering Volkanovski. Unfortunately, Volkanovski getting knocked out.
You know what it is? It is
It's in March, I believe.
It's March. You said Polaris?
No. Fight Pass Invitational.
Maybe I didn't write it down. It's not in here. It didn't
watch us forget when that event is.
It's coming up.
Yeah.
I know that much.
It's coming up. They announced it. They talked about it.
It's probably the same week as March 2nd because everything is March 2nd. GrappleFest is March 2nd. Place of Peace is March 2nd. Tour is March 2nd. ADCC is March 2nd.
Yeah, there's so much stuff happening in
South
March.
American Trials is March 2nd. Everything's March 2nd.
Yeah, it is.
The Absolute GP is the 29th, but...
Yeah, they really hit us with a bunch of stuff in a row. I'm looking for...
Invitational. Here we go. Let's see. It will be... Oh, and then it's March 3rd.
Okay, so
I told you. So it's that same weekend. Yeah. That weekend has everything. And that's a weekend I'm not around, so ha.
Ooh, so we're going to have someone fill in that week.
You're going to have somebody fill in that week.
They're going to get baptized by fire. Honestly, most of the guys have done it.
Yeah.
So... That's news this week. We have exciting stuff coming up. We are very much out of the lull of January. Miranda, where do you want to start with the ADCC European, Middle Eastern, and African trials?
Why don't we start with Fight to Win so we can get it done with, and then we can go into like the rest of our trials time.
Main event for Fight to Win 264 in Tampa, Florida, headlined by Keith Krikorian versus Jason Vale. This is a rematch. You linked me the rematch. They met in...
Submission Grappling Series.
Yes.
On February 5th of 2022.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Keith looked good here. You have Keith's Patreon.
Yes, I do.
You posted to us what he said about the match.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting, kind of given how the match went. It was a little more Keith wrestling.
Yeah.
The main highlights of the match, again, for Fight to Win, you're looking for submission offense and submission attempts. That's what wins you the match. Keith spent the last minute and a half triangling Jason Vale.
Yeah.
And
he made a comment about wanting to go back to his roots.
Yeah.
And let me see if I can find it because I sent it to you.
Yeah. He was looking to implement more wrestling, I thought, is really what he was in that post sort of looking to do. And he did a bit of that, but really...
My main goals for this match were enjoying the process and testing out some new techniques. But one thing I want to work on moving forward is making sure that I'm still refining my A game.
Yeah, so that's...
Yeah. But, I mean, his triangle at the end, I mean, that's basic.
Yeah, I think it was what very clearly wanted in the match. He had some really interesting kind of setups. He initially sets up a reverse triangle, and then, I think 15 or 20 seconds after he has that set up, he flips it over. Jason does a really great job for the entire time defending that, but it is very clear. It's a somewhat closer match with Krikorian kind of pushing the action and pace with some more attempts, but that very, very much puts the match in his decision realm where it's like, it's very, very clear.
And they had met each other. The match before, it was a cage match.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different because you can't really roll away in a cage match. Fight to win, I mean, you could roll off the stage, but you still don't have the same... He was kind of... In that match, it was more of Keith and him rolling into a side of the cage and then them fighting feet, which is a lot more difficult of a thing to do because then you're stuck.
You have a cage wall.
And you have a cage wall that is blocking you. But yeah, it was fun going back. That one's on Instagram. You guys have to go back. It's much.
Yeah, if you want to see the first match,
it's back in their Instagram. But I found it, so it exists.
Yeah, but overall, again, Keith is we're going to be seeing a lot more of Keith. We're going to preview him next weekend, and we see him almost every weekend.
Almost every weekend.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Which is cool. And again, in that lead up to the West Coast Trials, West Coast Trials here in the U.S. for ADCC are a little less than 6 weeks away. So we're seeing a lot of folks really, guys do that kind of two ways. They either ramp up greatly in the competitions they do, or they just dead. And they're just quiet and they're just trying to preserve. And we've seen guys do both. Keith tends to be on the side of he just wants to be super active and gets in that competition mindset. And
it seems like he also tries to work on things. Like he's working on very specific things as he competes, which, I mean, you kind of have to do, and it's kind of a smart idea because just because you can hit it in the room doesn't mean you're going to hit it in a tournament or against somebody who's higher level than you.
All the times I've interviewed Keith, he's talked about that iterative and that changing of the process to stay with the top level guys. And in the last time I interviewed him when he won West Coast Trials, he talked about specifically changing, the best guys in the world, you're not going to sub. Yeah. So you have to find a way to strategically beat them and be able to change and be able to score points and score decisions on those guys. And so in his change between the couple of second places that he got, I think 3 second places in a row at Trials, to that West Coast Trials that he finally won, that was his big takeaway. And so it's cool to see him, again, expanding his game, using these matches that he's taking on the way in his lead up to Trials in order to refine and further refine his game plan going into, his 8th, 7th Trials or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, maybe not 7th, 5th at least. Yeah. A bunch of Trials. So excited to see Keith really watching his game. Takes a dominant decision over Jason Vale at Fight to Win. Anything else on that?
No.
Cool. Now let's move in to ADCC European, Middle Eastern, and African Trials. Miranda, where do you want to start with this one?
We'll just start at men's under 66.
Men's under 66. We had, so European Trials. Big apologies to all the European listeners. If as a caveat to the show, if you hear us butchering a name repeatedly, shoot us a DM. Always really appreciate it. I realized kind of this year that if I call for that and ask for that, almost every time.
Yeah,
every time someone or multiple
us.
People will send us in. Very much appreciative of the community that listens, going, hey, man, that's how you pronounce this guy's name. With the European names of all of the regions in the world, I typically tend to butcher those the worst. So, upfront apologies.
Yeah, some of them it's just because they have so many syllables. And so many consonants that it becomes.
And I'm also not good at names. So,
me
finals match, we had Gairbeg
Ibragimov.
I'm going to call him Gairbeg. And he went against...
Gairbeg? No, Beg.
Gairbeg. He went against Yigit
Hanay.
We're going to call him Hanay because that's the one I can get closer to.
Not Yigit?
Not Yigit.
Yigit?
So, maybe we need to do the show later. We're a little more tired. Gairbeg, we've seen him. I think he's a Universal Fighters guy. I think we've seen him on IEGA before.
We have.
Okay. And
he's Russian.
you watched his. What I love Flo did this time is for all of their champions for the trials, they just posted all of their matches in one big video.
Yeah, I think they've done them all by now. When I finished watching everything last night, they still hadn't done like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah,
but I
they
saw
have them all, this morning.
Slowly they were all showing up. So even though one was a little wrong.
Well,
this one.
Let's talk about it now.
Oh, this one is the one that was wrong.
Initially, when we looked at it, we were watching, and if you looked at the match between Gairbeg and Ash Williams, which was the semifinal match to determine who would go to the finals, they had put their match from 2 trials ago in that. And it was such a funny little error.
The 2021 match, because the mats were different, and it said finals, and then they were given deductions for pulling guard.
Yeah.
And I was like...
And then you texted me, like, wait, was it a different finals match? And I looked at it, I was like,
did they mess the bracket up so much that they're running semifinals?
I recognized the match. I was like, that's 2 trials ago. Yeah. And then so they've corrected it now, but it was really funny. For at least a couple hours, they had Gairbeg and Ash Williams' first match at trials from a couple years ago in that, and they fixed it now, so they have their current match.
It's not like either of them looked any different. They looked exactly the same.
It was a very similar match.
Like they look now. I mean, their hair was the same. Their clothes.
Oh, yeah.
Like it wasn't like either of them have done anything that significant with themselves.
Guys kind of look the same. Haven't really changed it up. You looked at Gairbeg's kind of run up to the finals match with Hanay.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, So I made an assumption that was incorrect. That Russian really good at. I would say really good at takedowns, and I was like, he's just gonna get on top and crush everybody the whole time. And he did that his first, maybe second match. That's how he did it, which I'm sure that's when you're significantly better than the person you're going against.
So caveat, whenever we talk about trials, I typically refer to the first 2 rounds as trials as the bloodbath rounds. Yeah. Where it's you get guys, and again, this is no disrespect to any of the athletes that put in camps for trials.
And I'm rarely a bloodbath round. So like I get butchered myself.
The first 2 rounds of trials are like world level guy that will place an ADCC versus guy that's about it and wants to go and test himself against the best.
So you see a change in skill, and you see a difference in skill, and you see a difference in like veteran status.
Usually round 1 and 2 is just a slaughtering of like so typically throughout the weekend, for the folks that are going to make it to day 2 in the European U.S. trials, and the folks that are going to make it into those final and placement rounds, you'll see a pretty significant change of style from their first couple matches into the tactics that they need in their later matches, because they're going and facing, a bell curve essentially of athletes and competitors, where it's like your first guys are good local competitors-ish, and then your last guys are people that can hang on the world level and are aiming to be a world champion.
And not saying these guys couldn't have also been world class. It just his first 2 matches, he basically got took people down, hung out on top of them, and his jam was Darce's, which I didn't like. I didn't think he had enough arm to do. Like you normally see the lanky men do Darce's.
It's interesting to see a guy at 66 that's a heavy Darce player. That was really interesting here.
So that was like his thing, and then I started realizing he actually plays a lot of guard. Like he plays off his butt really well.
When I was really surprised in this match, and you picked up in your notes as well, is that he scored late.
Yeah, every single time he would score in the last 30 seconds, minute, which I kind of understand.
We haven't seen guys. This used to be a thing in the IBJJF a lot, where you'd see guys camp in a position, and it'd be no score, and then you'd see the last 30 seconds, guys would sprint for it and make their score there, so they couldn't get scored on the other side.
You saw Langaker do, where he waited until they went to points and then would score.
That's common,
and that's very common, because that's almost something that you teach somebody to do when you're in this rule set. Because it's what I do when I'm in this rule set. But Gairbeg basically waited till literally the last 30 seconds.
Almost every match.
And then he turned it on and went hard. And it was interesting, because the one time, I think the match with Hanay was the one where
it was overtime.
At the very end, he tries to pass, he almost gets past, and then he gets kind of butthurt and kind of yells at the ref for a second before they go into OT, because he thought he should have got pass points, but he didn't.
By the way, this has come up in some of the other in the internal ADCC stuff. This exact sequence has come up, and there is a big discussion happening for exactly when you take someone down. How, if it is a hip, or how much of the ass has to be turned before someone turtles. So go back if you're a rules connoisseur, and you probably are if you listen to the show. Go back and watch the finals match between Gairbeg and Hanay for the last sequence right before overtime, because you'll see what we're talking about with the going to turtle and Hanay going to turtle here, and you can figure out, okay, right now that doesn't score.
Yeah.
But there may be a slight change in the wording of ADCC that may or may not make this continue to not score, or will score in the future.
Okay.
Because this is on the line, and there will be clarification, I think, that will come out from this.
And the one thing about Hanay, he was really good at resisting anytime points were going to be put on him.
Yeah.
Like, he was really good at, like, not, even if he was getting past, not going flat backed so that he couldn't get the points against him. He would turtle really well. He did a lot of really good transitions that caused him not to have points scored at him in really, like, important times in the match.
Yeah.
And then they go into overtime, and it still goes into, I mean, it still goes back and forth of them.
I think the correct decision here is Gairbeg. Like, I think he clearly should take this. It was just very interesting.
Oh, that whole sequence, the sequence we're talking about, is an OT sequence. It's the end of OT. It's not the NT.
It's the end. I thought it was the end of regulation.
No, it's the end of OT.
Okay. I had that wrong then.
I know my notes are also confusing because I did them differently than we normally do.
Yeah, we mushed our notes together in a way that we don't usually do it, and probably, hopefully, will not do in the future. Live and learn.
But yeah, no, at the end was him almost getting his back, and, like, passing, and then Gairbeg gets his leg back in, and then they go into OT, and then Gairbeg is like, what the? And you see Gairbeg start to, like, kind of
be upset
about it, and they set him back up.
So this is a really good match to look at for the points. I think both guys played it as well as you can for, like, the understanding of the very slim margins that ADCC has for points, and both guys played to not have that score very, very well. I think, again, Gairbeg is on the on the offensive most of the match, which wins him this. But this is a match to go watch. Just how hard, and ADCC we talk about all the time, how hard it is to score points. This match really demonstrates, like, man, that doesn't score. Nope, not an ADCC. Yeah. Very, very good. Again, very good on all accounts, but it'll be interesting to see Gairbeg in the World Championships now as the last European entrant, or as the last European Trials winner to earn a spot in the second European trial. So I'm curious to see how he stacks at 66. He's got an interesting style. I think we'll probably see... I'm curious how he's going to get seeded. Because with this performance, I could see him getting seeded lower, and I'm curious to see who he's going to run into first. Yeah. But it was interesting. He played it perfectly. Anything else on 66?
Nope.
Gairbeg and Ash Williams is interesting. We all had Ash winning this going in, so it's interesting to see him getting taken out.
And the last, the 2021 European Trials, Ash beat Gairbeg.
Yeah.
So for Gairbeg to then turn around and beat Ash, is just kind of like almost like a changing of the guard. Though.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's cool. I love to see rematches that are, again, finals of an event and then finals of an event. Same rule set, same situation, same stakes. It is interesting. It's always really nice to see. Not nice to see is the right way to put that, but it's always really interesting as a spectator to watch those repeat finals. When they do, the dynamic does change slightly. Yeah, it's neat to watch athletes develop over the years. Moving on to the division that I was kind of most excited at coming into this, we got under 77 kilos. We had a final of Tommy Langaker versus David Arce.
Davis.
I keep calling him David. Davis Arce.
I know. I mess it up every time, too, because I double check his name every single time.
So he's the guy at a New Wave that we were excited about that couldn't do the last trials because he had an injury or something.
Yeah, it's some kind of leg issue.
And then now he's back. In the previous match, to move into this, he had to beat his teammate, Oliver Taza, also of New Wave. Yeah. You can go back and watch that match. It is very interesting, and it's almost a match you can tell with Arce. You could kind of see there was some counters that Arce did where it's like, oh, you see him in the room. Yeah. This is something that you've seen him do in the room. You studied him. Like, with some of the entries that Taza has that are more tricky, you could see Arce immediately, like, almost preemptively having his hand in a place to block a leg.
Already know what's coming before it even hits him.
And because Taza has such a like a strong game in the areas he's strong in, potentially that's a really tough matchup for Taza, because it's like, well, half of your game is just in the moment having the timing and beating the guy to the space. So if you have to go against the guy you train with, it's probably a nightmare. So interesting semifinals match, but in the finals, we got to see how good Tommy Langaker is.
Yep.
He was able to shut Davis down for really the entirety of this match almost. Like this was very much a levels to this game matchup, and you saw Tommy just be able to impose repeatedly, and you saw Arce really never be able to get his game going at all on Tommy, because Tommy was just that step ahead, that blip ahead. He was ahead on the technique. He was just like keeping it in the realm and the spaces that he wanted to have that fight. And as the match went on, it just kind of went further and further in Tommy's favor. You have a really funny note here that I want you to explain it through.
So, and this is something that we called it in the room for a really long time. But so everybody learns the double underpass, and everybody learns, you take both the legs on your shoulders, reach under. Like if you learn it in gi, you grab the belt. If you don't learn
or
it
the
in
skirt
no-gi,
or something,
you put your hands together and you kind of load them up on your lap, and then you kind of crush them into the face and put them to the side. But under here I have Tommy double under Gold's Gym Pass, because we always called it the Gold's Gym Pass is like the
it's the white belt
it's the white belt version
of
of this pass, because the white belts normally pick the legs up and then they throw the legs as hard as they can past themselves so they can get to side control, which Maine here, he likes to capitalize and turtle from the throw.
Yeah,
which is what
somebody, every high level guy does.
Yeah.
It's like,
which is why they tell you not
space,
to like throw the legs by. But that's what we called it, because we were like,
so
it sounds like something some big strong dude would be like, hey, I'm just gonna throw this little guy by me, you know.
So essentially what's happening, and why Tommy hits what we're going to call the Gold's Gym Pass. And by the way, for any of the international listeners, Gold's Gym is a very... it's like not a powerlifter gym, but it is like if you are going to go be a straight up meathead and lift heavy weight in a gym that's for that and get really strong, Gold's Gym is like the place to do that.
It's not like top level. It's kind of like you still do your 9 to 5 in your business suit, but then you go in there.
But you're jacked. You want to be a meathead. You want to get real big. Like the guys there.
They have a lot in a lot of European countries. They have UFC gyms.
Yeah,
which are the same way. They're like it's a commercial gym, but they still have a lot of your heavy lifting stuff.
Yes,
it's
if
not
you
like,
want to get big and like actually big and strong, and not like a boutique gym. Gold's Gym. So the Gold's Gym Pass is like, I'm gonna be really strong and throw you back. This is not in any way to diminish the technique of either of these folks. It
or
was just,
Gold's Gym.
Yeah, it was just in the basically in the final sequence. Tommy puts Arce on his back. Arce basically puts both legs up in the air, which makes it really difficult to pass because you're leaned into their legs. And so Tommy goes, cool, you're going to commit up your hips this way with your legs up. I'm just going to throw you by. Arce goes, cool, you've thrown me by. I don't want to let you land on my hips.
Yeah.
He goes to turtle. Tommy knows he's going to turtle because if you're good, that's what you do. Tommy jumps the back and then basically spends a little bit of time getting the rear naked choke, but it was pretty clear that he had beat Arce in the hand fight early. He had
the whole crew there too, because they were cheering on his name
at some
the entire
point
time.
In the finals. They're yelling, the whole crowd is going, Norway, Norway, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is in Croatia. This isn't even close to Norway. But dude, I love there's an element of I don't know, not nationalism, but it's very funny. In the U.S., for the U.S. trials, the 95% of the athletes are all U.S. based.
Yeah.
And so it's very rare to get like a USA chant. It's like usually if it is, it's because everyone's an asshole.
Yeah.
But here it's very funny because there's such an eclectic mix of various nationalities. Yeah. You can get like country chants for your guy.
Yeah.
And it's just very funny. Oh, right. It was cool to hear that for a European event of like the Norway guys like chanting for.
I couldn't figure out what
Tommy.
they were saying at first, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
and then they started chanting Tommy.
Yeah,
and it was Tommy.
But initially it was Norway, Norway, Norway. I was like, hell yeah, Tommy Langaker. So, just really, really impressive bell-to-bell performance here from Langaker. I haven't got a chance to watch a lot of his other matches, but man, this is impressive.
Most of his matches, he may have had a little shakiness. And it wasn't even really shakiness. He wasn't completely in control for the first little bit, and then it was like, oh, no, I need to go now, and he would just go. He went against Tim Maynard. I don't know. His Instagram handle is I Love Armbars. And
Miranda's note is the I Love Armbars guy on
yeah.
Instagram.
Well, because he trained with B Team for a bit.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he won the Trixel tournament that we covered a while ago.
That was a fun tournament. I'm excited for the second one.
He gets Langaker in an armbar almost immediately in his match. But then Tommy's like, no, and just passes him. And then, it's Mountain.
I did see the Tommy Langaker match versus Tarek Hopstock.
Yeah.
And
something happened to Tarek because his head was all wrapped up.
That's like a quarterfinals match, and Tarek looks like Orlando Sanchez circa ADCC all wrapped up. Tarek looks the exact same way.
Yeah.
And then Tommy just, towards the end of the match, gets Tarek's back. Tarek is fully standing up, and Tommy is just trying to bottle top him.
Yeah.
And if you haven't heard, Josh described bottle topping someone years ago in the show, and it's basically when you take the middle of the crown of their skull down to their jawline and you just turn their head so it's not square to their shoulder. It's just like, it's a sideways neck crank that can maybe give you a rear naked choke, but Tommy is in a position where he's just trying to bottle top Tarek, and I was like, this looks terrible.
Both of them are from Norway, or at least
I believe so.
Tarek puts up the Norway flag.
Yeah, they both have the Norwegian flag.
So I'm sure they've won against each other before. And it was funny because after the match, I was trying to read Tarek's, what he was saying to him, but he gave him one of those, what the fuck, man? Like, what, and just one of those,
hey man, I thought we were cool.
Yeah, one of those kind of things. But it was kind of fun.
It was a cool match. It was nice to see the control that Tommy had. And again, it's rare. Tarek was standing with Tommy on his back in the body triangle because the body triangle scores in ADCC.
Oh, and this was
just trying to bottle
This was the one too where when Tarek dropped him, so he was on his head, and then Tarek put his hands down and shook him off. When he initially dropped Langaker off, he immediately tried to pass because he would have won. He would have gotten the points. And so he shoots in, and the last 30 seconds of this match is wild shit of Langaker trying to just maintain his guard so that he doesn't get points put against him. But he definitely, there's a whole middle section of Tommy having control, but the last 30 seconds is Tarek being I'm going to try this and kind of kicking in the high gear.
Which I really love about the trials, because a lot of times these big events, guys will really be down and just throw caution to the wind when they're down.
And I think that's something that you, as a grappler, that's something you kind of have to do. You can't just die. At the end, even if you know you're
I'm down 4 points. All right, we're gonna let it ride.
Yeah, you just gotta go.
And we have a match later. One of the women's matches is very much like that as well. So again, I was excited about 77. I need to go back and watch more of the 77 matches, but the ones I've seen so far, I've had a really good time. Again, we were rightfully amped for 77 kilos. Tommy Langaker takes that again. I think he took that. I forget which the last one he won, but Langaker's won it before. But now he wins it again. Yep. So moving on to the under 88 kilogram division, we have Taylor Pearman defeating Ben Bennett in the finals.
Dude, Ben Bennett was aggressive.
Dude, yeah.
So that's the only way to explain him.
At some point, so the ref, I'm blanking on the ref. I worked ADCC with this ref before, and I'm blanking on his name.
He reminded me
it's not Girard, it's the other guy.
He reminded me of me when I get too aggressive when I compete, and I start hitting them when I compete because I'm trying to get them to move, but they won't move. But he's moving, he moves so fast, and he's trying to hit him and drop an elbow and all kinds.
This
of
got
shit.
really. It never got chippy, but you can tell both guys were really, really aggressive, looking for what they wanted. And the ref at one point goes, "Hey, guys!" And he points, and you can see him point at one guy's face and say something, point at the other guy's face, and put his hand on his own face and go, "Hey, man, you guys need to stop doing this thing you're doing." And then the athletes both go, "Okay," and kind of the tone of the match changes a little bit back to a little bit better technique. Dude. Taylor, I think he hit 6 for 6 on this heel hook. So it starts out super aggressive, and then in my notes, I have this as Taylor Pearman hits Jacob Couch false reap entry number 2.
Entry number 2.
Because, there's 2 entries that Couch does.
Yeah.
And this is the one that we see him do less frequently.
Yeah.
And go back and watch Couch. You'll see 2 entries. You're like, the second one's the one he did. It's a false reap entry, and it's a really good false reap entry, and then he just turns to the side, and he's just in the heel hook, ready to go, and that's the match. That was, and he gave a really cool interview, Pearman did, which basically talked about his training situation and the
Yeah.
financial situation he was in, and like basically the last year has been very, very tough.
Yeah.
And he talked about like his girlfriend helping supporting basically his dream to go and win this event and go and get to this
And
level.
He was 6 for 6, so I mean,
Yeah.
good on him.
And it was really cool to see him like talk about his situation. Like again, he's not a guy that we're super familiar with, so those interviews after the event, the emotions are raw. It's really cool to see, and you learn about like, man, that's a guy I'm super excited to see at the World Championships, especially subbing his way 6 for 6 all the way through this tournament. He also had a really fun match with Adam Wardzinski that we were really impressed with. Wardzinski gets him over quick with a butterfly, and Taylor seems pretty okay because there's no points in that match to sit down. And then not immediately, for 30 seconds later, Wardzinski stands. Taylor does pretty much this same entry again, comes out the back on a backside heel hook, and Adam's knee is in a funny way, so the heel hook doesn't even have to get extended, and Adam just goes, I'm good.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a hip thing. Like, it's almost like his hips were forward, and his knee and foot were going the wrong direction, like backwards.
It was Taylor yanks on this, Wardzinski's knee is going to explode.
Yeah.
And Wardzinski went, nah, man, I'm good. Because his knee's already posted to the mat. Like, Wardzinski's already one step behind, and he's in a heel hook with a guy who is at that point 4 for 4 on the day on heel hooks. And you're okay,
well, and
it's unfortunate.
As that level of an athlete, it's not worth the knee. Like, it's
unless
not
you're timing Langaker.
Well, yeah, but that's a little bit different.
Like, Adam, do you want to be out for 9 months? And Wardzinski was like, no, I would like to continue to compete frequently. I've just beat Felipe Andrew. I'm going to do that again.
And this wouldn't be finals, so he would have still had another match.
Yeah, you can't. You can get it popped in the finals, but leading up to the finals, you don't want to have that, because then I have to fight the world level guy with one leg, and he's going to beat me. So Taylor Pearman, not a guy I was super familiar with leading into this. Very, very impressive with his performance all the way up through, and again, really neat false sweep entries. Europe loving the false sweep entries. Yeah, we saw 3 different finals. Yeah, it's kind of their false sweep. It's
kind of their jam. We're gonna go into another one.
Yeah. So moving on to the under 99 kilogram division, we have a name that I'm gonna butcher, Marcin Machulewicz, who is the guy that won the Polaris qualifier for the GP. And we talked about this, and we talked about him. In that event, he got knocked out first round of the Polaris GP. And we talked about him as like, cool, I like his game. I think he's a guy that we are probably going to be seeing more of, because I like his game. He puts it together well. He has a lot of dynamism, and he has a lot of, you can see he has a lot of thought process behind the way that he is handling certain situations. He might have been against Kynan in the first round.
Okay.
I think he would in the lowest seed as the qualifier.
Yeah. I was seeing if we could figure out who we won against.
Yeah, for some reason I think it was Tynan. It was Kynan, I mean.
Bordoni.
It was Bodoni.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, one of the top, your top 2 seeds there in that tournament.
But it was still like 4 minutes in, so it wasn't like an immediate loss.
Yeah.
It was like he made him work.
I think Bodoni gets his back in this, but again, I remember seeing him going, okay, I'm excited to see more from him, and now we are seeing more from him. We're seeing him win the under 99 kilogram division for ADCC Trials. This match did not start out going his way.
No.
Casper Larson, pretty, 3 minutes in, 2 minutes into the match?
Yeah, but then you have Marcin do like a facial expression like, no, and then Casper just like blast doubles him.
Not even blast, literally blast double, just head in the stomach, and then a lot of times with a blast double, at least the way that I learned the blast double, is basically you get behind the knees and then you just run.
Yeah.
And you just run. This was not that. This was the double where you put your head in their stomach and then you rip their knees out up and you just drop them straight down.
This is what one of my kids did at Grappling Industries to this little girl. This little boy, and he just he did this to some little girl, and she as soon as she hit the ground, she just started screaming and crying, and she was done.
Yeah.
And my little kid was so excited about it, and I felt bad, and I was like, it was one of those I'm like,
as a coach, I'm in a weird spot.
Yeah, I'm in a weird spot because I'm kind of proud, but not at the same time because
there's a child crying. But yeah, Casper hits a really good, probably a couple minutes in, 3 minutes into this match. They've been on the feet, being a little bit tentative on the feet, kind of looking for an opening.
Well, because he can't pull, and Marcin had pulled in a lot of his prior matches.
Oh, yeah, so ADCC, we haven't talked about this episode. ADCC for the trials, in the finals of the trials, it is 2 more minutes long. So matches preceding that have been 6 minutes, 3 minutes no points, 3 minutes points. So you can do whatever you want in the first 2 minutes of the matches. In the finals, they are 4 minutes, and then every ADCC has half of the match overtime. So for the regulation, it is 3 minutes.
Yeah.
For the finals, it is up to a 4-minute overtime. In the finals, you, at any point in time, if you pull, it is a -1, whereas in the earlier sections of the tournament, if you pull in the points period, it is -1. And so Marcin, with his strategy through the tournament of pulling, he then can't immediately pull. You can get taken down, but you can't pull.
That's my note that we didn't know what it belonged to. I had some notes on here that we were like wrong match. Because, like, sometimes I take notes in the wrong place. So, but in all the prior matches he would pull, and he was dominant on the bottom.
Yep.
And he would attack the far arm. Like, so he was in half guard, but he was going after the far arm, almost like you do the old school Kimura.
Yep.
He would do that, and he would try to, like, get that arm. And then from that, when they would go to yank their arm up and out, he would go after their legs.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it opens up that leg on that side.
Yeah, pulls the body further away and allows you to get basically under their hips more to then push their hips away across your center line to go for the legs.
And that's what he was doing to most of them. And if he wouldn't go after the legs, he would sweep them over and then aggressivily try to follow him to the back. And that's what he basically did in all of his matches leading up. And then this one he had to do a little bit different.
Which is interesting to see. Again, I always love when athletes come in, especially with a pull game for ADCC, because you wonder, like, all right, we're 2 matches in, we're 3 matches in, we're at the finals. And we've seen athletes not be able to deal with that difference. We've seen athletes take the negative. Like, it's always a really kind of if people go back and forth for this for ADCC, if they like it or they don't like it. I always really like it because you suddenly have, hey man, it's the finals. You got to show us you can do it all.
Yeah.
And I love that, we get to see this strategy, this change of strategy from Marcin still work out for him. So Casper goes, cool, you're not going to pull. I'm going to put us there. Double legs him, does a very nice double. And then a little bit later, Marcin hits a really interesting false reap entry. He basically loops under. He does the hand under the leg thing. He pushes away. And then Casper does a really nice job as he goes to get elevated and turned over. Typically what you do is like a false reap. You do a knee bar from underneath.
Yeah.
But in order to prevent that, Casper has his toes of the post leg underneath Marcin's knee pit.
Yeah.
So you can't pull that. You can't free that foot from this inversion in order to go for the knee bar. But Marcin does something that I haven't seen in a while. He does an old school saddle entry off of that reaction, because if you leave the knee underneath your foot, you can just, when you turn them over, you can sit to the side, your hips are now in line with theirs, and you end up in the saddle, whether you have that reaped leg over the top, and then Marcin is right in position for the heel hook, gets the heel hook really quickly, and that's the entire match. But I was trying to think of the last time that I've seen this particular saddle entry, and like this is circa 2015, 2016.
Yeah, it's an older entry. And it might have been before they even called it saddle.
Yeah,
they used to call it something else, and I forget.
What was the name for it back then?
I don't know.
But I'm trying to remember. Like, it's a good entry, and I know I've seen it prior to. I've seen it more recently than that, but I don't remember. Maybe it's the camera angle too, where it's like, because you can see Casper blocking the foot under the knee pit of Marcin as he gets taken over, and usually the camera is facing towards the body, and so you can't see that little detail.
Yeah.
Regardless, it was a really, really nice false reap entry that he turned into a saddle that he immediately turned into a heel hook. And we are now going to see more of Marcin Maciulewicz in ADCC.
You said that really fast.
Hey, I said it quick, so if I messed it up, it didn't sound terrible. I know my strengths.
Yep.
I was impressed with Marcin. We were impressed with him, in the lead up to it. So I'm excited and looking forward to seeing more of him. Anything more on under 99?
Nope.
All right, I'm going to let you lead with the men's over 99 kilo division.
So sometimes I go on these weird tangents, okay?
We have Mark McQueen versus Freddie Voskarov. I've trained with Freddie before. I like Freddie.
Have you?
Yeah. He came to Baltimore years ago. He did
really?
DC Open. Yeah, we know Freddie.
Okay.
Yeah, Freddie's a cool dude. And I haven't trained with him in years now, but he came when he was a German brown belt. He's a black belt now. But he crushed the DC Open back when IBJJF used to come around here.
Yeah.
And I was like,
they're
that
coming to
guy's
New
very
Jersey
good.
and Virginia.
They are finally coming here.
July June, July.
But my introduction to Freddie before he was on Polaris and all those and Grapple Fest and all those other things was seeing this guy train with and then watching him just crush people at the DC Open. I was like, okay, well, we're probably going to see more of him in a couple years. Yeah. And here we are.
So I went deep in this Mark McQueen guy because I was like, I don't know who this guy is. I've never seen him before. He's a really big man. And then I looked, and he's a IBF world champion powerlifter. He started his jiu-jitsu journey in 2019 and is a brown belt.
This is why I don't do ultra heavy. And other reasons, but it's like, cool. One of the strongest men Britain has ever produced is now in the division.
So
good luck.
He has a 766-pound deadlift, an 804-pound squat, and he once squat, benched, and deadlifted a total of 2,028 pounds.
So for people that don't know powerlifting, like my wife used to be a powerlifter, so I've like learned a bit of it here and there.
I can't do any of that.
So there's a big deal getting to like the 1,000-pound club.
Yeah,
like it is a big accomplishment to be able to do all of that as a combination. Corey, is that correct?
Squat, bench,
the 1,000
deadlift.
pounds is a big deal. Yeah. We got Corey here, by the way. He's sitting in because I like him and he knows a lot about jiu-jitsu. So the 1,000-pound is a big deal. He has 2,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And so he has a bunch of like British records, I think, as well that you looked up.
Yeah. It was wild. And I was looking at it, I was like, holy shit. Like, he can just like pick up these guys and just throw them to the side.
When the pre-show, we watched a bunch of his lifts. And for that record, a lot of guys, when they make these record lifts, is like they're like barely getting it up. Yeah. All three of his lifts, he like reps it. And you go, that was insane.
And he has a look on his face who's like, whatever. Like,
yeah.
He either is really good at like not showing expression on his face, or he's just a ridiculously strong dude.
The speed that Mark McQueen does those, and this is I think 2018 is the videos we were watching of him when he was at kind of his prime for powerlifting, right before he makes the transition over to grappling. But as a guy who's watched a lot of lifting videos and can't do anything because my back's broken, very, very impressive lifter.
Yeah.
So Freddie's got to go against him in the finals.
Yeah.
And to Freddie's credit, Mark looks exhausted.
He does.
In the later sections of this match. But Mark is very diligent in Freddie's guard. And Freddie is like being active, moving around. And like, but Mark is just continually putting consistent pressure on Freddie.
Yeah.
Like staying diligent, avoiding the attacks, not letting Freddie get underneath him at all for the legs. Freddie's a very good leg locker. And late in the match, with about like 37 seconds left, he essentially just hits a float pass over Freddie's guard. Freddie kind of lifts up. Mark comes over. He hips to the side. He rolls down, and Freddie's just unable to get Mark off his hips. Mark hits a clean, technically not a clean pass because ADCC a clean takedown or clean sweep would be to the side control from open. But Mark scores his points, and that's, again, another guy that scores late in the match. I don't think that was for lack of trying.
No, I don't think that was lack of trying. I think that was just Freddie, like, trying to kind of throw it all at Freddie.
Yeah.
But watching this match, I thought that Mark was gassed. When he got into Freddie's guard, he looked gassed.
Dude, he looked Big Dan Victor Hugo gassed.
But
those rounds.
If you go to the match before this one, when he goes against Pignotti Pana.
Yeah, who we've seen before, who's a big French black belt, I think.
Yeah. And he goes against him, and that was the only time I ever saw him get thrown
Miranda's
around.
note for this entire match is big man shove match.
That's basically what it was. It was a big man shove match, the whole thing.
But it's interesting. I think you said that was the only person that you saw on the weekend that could deal with the kind of physicality of Mark McQueen.
Yeah, he was the only guy, and he was taller, maybe.
I think Pana is enormous.
Yeah, I think, and he looked kind of enormous. And Mark McQueen has the stocky little
powerlifter build.
Yeah,
he's got that. It's like powerlifters typically
they all have a little bit of a belly.
Yeah, because that's where the strength comes from. Look, man, over 99 is, again, I remember talking to John Hansen about this. He goes, over 99 is where you just pick a slider and you just slide them all the way for your character creator. And like, that's like Mark McQueen. He picked that I'm going to be super, super strong. Good, and now I'm going to learn some technique a couple years in.
Yeah.
And good luck dealing with me. Yeah. That's the slider he picked. So again, over 99 is always a lot of fun for these kind of matchups.
Yeah.
And it was impressive. Again, I'm excited to see how Mark McQueen fares versus guys like Victor Hugo, Big Dan, Gordon, Yuri, Nicky Rodriguez. Like there's a lot, and a bunch of other folks that have the sliders just pumped up to one side or the other.
Yeah, the only problem with him is going to be that he doesn't have a ton of experience at that level.
And a lot of those guys, those big guys, have just been there. He's walking into a division of veterans that have a lot of experience. But again, we've seen it work for Nick Rodriguez before.
Yeah, because it's almost like in over 99, you can be a larger gentleman and be there for a longer period of time.
Yeah, like strength and
it's kind of like UFC. UFC is the same way.
Power is the last thing to go, as they put it for the heavy divisions. It's like, man, you have all that craft because you're old. You've been doing it for so long.
Sometimes you almost get better as you get older.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon talks about that a lot with guys. He's like, hey, man, them being older is a benefit to them because they have all of that experience. It's like, I'm coming in as the less experienced guy. Those guys have been at this level for so many years, and they have all of this wealth of experience. I am trying to catch up to that.
Yeah.
And then you can pull a Nick Rodriguez and go, hey, man, no one has any idea what I'm going to do. Good luck stopping it. So it'll be fun. I'm excited again. Always with the trials winners, always excited. Let's move on. Anything else on the men's divisions?
Nope.
Let's move into the women's divisions. This is the trials that matters for the women. This is the first time that we have had a European qualifier that has all 3 women's weight classes that earn an invite spot into the World Championship. So the previous European, African, and Middle Eastern qualifier, I keep calling it European trials. That's typically how you refer to it. I mean all of the trials, even if Flo is going to cut off the rest of the name for it. This is the first one that is a qualifier for the women. Let's start with the women's under 55 kilogram division. Margot Cicerelli takes that over Ashley Bendel. So we did some digging. Margot is what? D and Nogi world champion in IBGF.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Recently, I think, made the move over to AOJ.
Yeah.
Recently-ish.
Within the last 2 years, I would say.
Recently-ish.
She switched when the really tiny woman switched. You know,
Misa.
Yeah.
Bastos switched. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, a while ago.
They switched about the same time.
Yep. And so we were curious because on her smooth comp, and we've talked about this before, but I had to rehash it because we forgot. She has the Hong Kong flag on her smooth comp. But
she was born in England.
Yeah, well, so if she was Hong Kong, she wouldn't qualify for this trials.
No.
And we were like, okay, well, something's going on because we didn't know. And then you looked up, she was born in England, so she most likely has an English passport as well as another passport. So that's why she's able to do the European trials as well. We have seen her at the Asian trials before, so she's one of those that can do too. There's a lot of folks that can do too.
The American trials too, when you think about it.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone do 3 trials. We've seen a lot of folks do, like Oliver Taza does both. Ajit Hayes does both. I think Roberto Jimenez does both.
He does.
Does he do both? Yeah.
He does South American and American.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did he?
No,
he
doesn't do American.
He doesn't do American. He only does South American.
But there's a lot of folks that, like Robert Deagle does both European and American trials. Like there's a lot of folks that are dual.
Big Dan does both.
Big Dan does both because he reps Romania. There's a bunch of guys that do both, but Margaret also does the Asian trials and
so she's like the international man of mystery.
Yes, much like Joseph Chen.
Yeah.
Yep. That does the European trials and can also do the Asian trials or the Australian trials.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. Let's run through this match now that we have clarification as to the nationality of Margaret Cicerelli.
And the only reason that matters is because each trial, to do a trials of a location, you have to be from or have a passport from that area.
Not even from, you have to have a passport from that. Even if you've been in the U.S. for 15 years, if your passport says, Morocco, you're unable to do the North American trials. You have to have a passport from one of the qualified countries in that region, one of the 4 regions.
I was talking to a girl at East Coast Trials that had a Canadian passport.
Yep.
And they tried to give her a hard time about North American trials. And she was like, I'm from Canada.
No shit, that really happened?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I guess she got the wrong person. Or that person just wasn't thinking straight.
Hey man, it's connected above. Part of the same continent.
Part of
totally
the
fine.
part.
North America. So moving on, finals match for women's under 55 kilos. Get us back on the rails here.
Sorry. Yeah, so Margot goes against Ashley Bendel. Ashley Bendel, she's trying an uchi, but I don't know if she's really trying the uchi or she wants... I don't know.
We saw Ashley Bendel go for the Uchimata a couple of times, which is that throw that you get where you kick your leg between and you try to throw over.
Yeah, you get an overhook and then you
can do it from the... I do it from the overhook. Most people do it from the underhook.
I do it from an underhook, but I know a lot of people do it from an overhook.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. No, I mean I watch a lot of people do it from overhook.
Well, it's a really good counter throw because...
I'm just too short. I can't overhook anybody.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised she kept going for
Yeah.
it because she would shoot for it, and Margot would make the angle that she needed to make that throw completely out of.
Well, and Margot
space.
would grab the head and arm and do like almost like a wrestling head and arm throw.
Yeah.
You know the one like you get thrown at by every wrestler
Mhm.
that you ever exists? Yeah,
Mhm.
that one. And she forced her down a few times. So then at the end, it was like Ashley kind of went down. Like,
Yeah.
she just forced her down at
The
one
the
point,
biggest
and it
piece is
was-
like as this match went on late, you kind of saw Margot figure out what Bendel wanted to do
Yeah.
and really put Bendel on the back foot for the majority of this match. Margot tries to get the back a couple of times and eventually gets the back.
Yeah.
And just is able to hold Ashley on the back. She even has her like face down, body triangle, belly down,
Yeah.
kind of looking for the choke at one point.
Yeah.
And you can sort of see by the time the match got to that stage, Margaret had kind of figured out the passing, had figured out the entries that Bendel was looking
Yeah.
for to get back up, had figured out kind of the dogfight game she was looking to play. And
in overtime, Margot did something that I've never really thought about. But she was on Ashley's back, and Ashley was standing. And then when Ashley went to put her hands down, Margot grabbed her leg, almost like she was going to do a that really nasty like.
the roll through.
Yeah, but she grabbed her leg almost like she
Sulabayev
was going to
the
do.
Sulabayev stretch.
She was going to do that.
Sulayev,
but
actually, not
instead of
Sulabayev.
instead of doing that we once went way deep into on one of its podcasts. Remember, we went into the history of it. Instead of doing that, she just uses it to kind of roll through and maintain the back, which I've never really seen anybody do.
Usually it's because folks don't have the flexibility.
Yeah, well, true.
You
true.
have to, the
You
guys that
have
do
to
it,
bend them in half.
yeah, and most of the guys, they just tears the hamstring as
Well,
they
I
do
guess
it.
that's the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. So she was probably put in that stretch, and then she was just like, because she's
Yeah.
bendy, you know?
Yeah, it was a really nice match, but it really kind of hammers home the level that Cicerelli is at because
She's
again, you're in the
also like
finals.
a world champion. In
Yeah.
the gi and the and
Pulling
no
a Fionn
gi.
Davies. So again, it would be interesting to see Margaret. I mean, I think she is going to be one of the top people in this new division.
Yeah.
I think she's what you said she was like 5'7".
She's 5'7", yeah, but she's also 30, so she's not the youngest.
But she's kind of grappling wise. You're
she's-
almost in your prime for those. A lot of those.
You think 30s?
I think 30 for grappling at the lower weight. I mean, we saw Taquinho
Yeah, true.
4 years ago
I don't know.
win.
I'm in my
at like almost
40s, and I
40.
know I'm probably a little behind the curve. So
Yeah. I'm really excited to see Margaret. The thing that was really nice here, the way she gets her back initially is off of essentially a shuck in overtime, where she just shucks Ashley Bendel by from standing and then gets the back there. But it was Margaret the entire match pretty much in a lot of control, a lot of good counters, and you saw her kind of slowly run away with the match as time went on. Just really, really impressive performance because again, Bendel's won this before. We know how dangerous she is. Very, very impressive to see Margaret, again, at that women's 55 kilo weight class, which I think is perfect for her. I think under 60, it'd be tough to see someone like Cicerelli be able to contend in this division, but that extra weight class, that extra 5 kilos, I think really makes for this a much better weight class.
I think Margot competes at lightweight, which is 141.
I thought it was 36 for women.
41.
Is it really?
For the gi.
It's with the gi on.
Oh, okay, so
That's
but
with-
it's
that's
36 without the gi, but still that's 36. 55 kilograms is 121. Because I cut to 55 kilograms. It's 121 pounds.
Is it really?
She's normally a lightweight, so she cuts to make under 55, I bet. She has to.
Yeah.
Because she normally competes lightweight. She won lightweight for No-Gi Worlds. She won lightweight.
Okay.
And she's 55 kilograms is 120. And
Lightweight is 138.
yeah.
And no-gi for IBJJF, lightweight is 136.
But
She can't be 130s. Now, she has to be featherweight, which is 25.
no, she does lightweight, I swear.
Okay.
Keep on
Regardless,
going.
So that is
She
women's.
she just might cut it. Like I did it. It sucks, but it's possible.
And if you're going to cut for an event, it would be ADCC Trials. So moving on to the under 65 kilogram division, we have, give me her first name again.
Arieli?
Arieli Laverne. She is the woman that we were very, very impressed about at the Worlds and at European Trials.
Yeah.
At Europeans.
Euros.
IBGDF Euros a couple of weeks ago. She runs 6 plate at a French Guyana. That whole arc that we went on last time. European champion in the gi.
She used to do lightweight and featherweight, so she does both.
Okay.
So she kind of bumps through. But if you look at her like this year, she did
Under 58, under 58,
64,
under 64, under 64.
Yeah, she kind of bumps back and forth. So
she might be cutting.
She's cutting to make that
which
weight.
is cool. But again, if you can make the cut,
yeah,
that's what you want to see. Again, look at the guys that cut the 66.
She also, when you think about it, Euros was how many weeks away? So you could diet yourself down if you're that like into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And for ADCC Trials, you're that into it.
Yeah.
So moving on to the finals match here. Sorry, anything else on under 55?
No, we're moving.
Moving on to the finals for under 65 kilos.
Sidetrack sometimes.
We have Aurelie Laverne versus Nora Schultz. Nora Schultz, we know her. She's Cody Steele's girlfriend. I was correct when I talked about that last week. We've seen her on Grapple Fest. We've seen her on a bunch of events.
Yeah.
Reps Germany,
yes.
which is why she's here in the European trials. Laverne is French Guiana.
Yeah.
Or not for this event, but for...
Yeah. She's Brazilian. She's Brazilian. Her nickname is Lourinha, right? Lourinha? Yeah.
You got to say it with some pizzazz on it.
Which means blondie.
Yeah.
But she's not blonde.
Yeah, it was we were kind of curious. You found that, and I was like, kind of curious
well,
about...
that was written on the back of her back of her rash guard, and I was like...
You got to know if it's one of those Portuguese nicknames that's like mean.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, she's blonde. Like no idea why.
Like
I'm
Buchecha.
Chubby cheeks.
Or shoe face.
Or like Tanquinho, or like what's Pajares? It's like little tree stump or whatever his name is.
Yeah, and then one of them is like basically rejected child or something like that.
Terrible.
There's some horrible nicknames.
Brazilians, be a little nicer.
Yeah.
So,
but
this is a fun one. This was really Laverne in the driver's seat again for a big section of this match. Nora put up some really, really good defense, but Laverne for a big piece of this match had control of an arm, was looking for the back, or was looking for the cross-side Kimura, cross-side armbar combination. I wrote it down specifically because it's the sequence that I want to focus on in this match. At 3:46 left in the match, there's a really interesting transition where Laverne she's almost on Nora's back. She has a modified Kimura grip on the far side that normally you transition to a belly down armbar, but because of the position that Nora is in, if she does that, she's going to get shucked off the top. Normally, when you have this and you're as far forward as Laverne is, normally the person can kind of wrestle you down over top of their shoulders and you just get put back into the guard. Laverne does a really, really interesting thing here where she pulls her outside leg out almost like she's going to sit back down for like a crucifix from the top, and she uses her abs to basically go back over top of the back of Nora and then throws the hooks in from that far side Kimura position. You need a ton of core strength and balance to be able to do that. I'm not sure if she was able to do this because of the position that she had Nora in or like exactly what allowed her to get this done, but it's not a transition you see very often be successful. It's something you see people shoot for not infrequently, but usually people get overzealous and fight for that armbar, fight for that Kimura or something else.
You don't know. This could be her jam. This is what she could do to people all the time in the training room. And then it was
just a really impressive transition, and she gets points off of it. I think from here she goes back to the mat. This kicks off a scoring sequence here that lets Laverne take it. Oh no, that's the only points actually. Was that back take? Yeah. But it kicks off a more it kicks off a less even section of this match where it's Nora very much defending the offense from Laverne. And, that was the match.
And Arielle has some, quite a few, she has a very good performances throughout this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Her little snippet, I think it's only 20 minutes long, is all of her matches.
Oh, it's short. I mean, it was a smaller
but
division for under 65.
It was a Kimura. The second one was a points win, but there's some really nasty choke attempts in it. Then she had a triangle. Then Nadia Franklin, who was our Australian, right? Isn't Nadia Franklin Australian?
Wouldn't be for this trials.
No, but I think we see her in Australian things normally.
Maybe, yeah.
But anyway,
name seems familiar.
Yeah, we see her around a lot. She gets a mounted armbar on her very quickly. And then she goes in with Nora Schultz. So I mean, her run was definitely
most of the
strong
videos for the athletes, except for Cicerelli's is weird because it has a bunch of empty space in it, but I think most of the athletes for the divisions, the videos are 38 to 56 minutes, somewhere around that range. Arielle Laverne's is like 22 minutes or something, like
Yeah.
20-something minutes. Like, it just gives you some perspective on how quick. Again, she had 1 or 2 less matches, but also very quickly went through that division. And so, again, very, very excited to see her in the women's under 65 kilo division.
Yeah, Nadia Franklin is she hit double gold at
Euros.
Worlds.
At Worlds.
At World Nogi, but she's a brown belt.
Okay.
But she, I mean,
Yeah, you're saying the
does,
name
like,
seems really familiar.
Yeah, we've seen
and
her.
I'm blanking on
well,
what she
because
was in.
she got silver.
Oh,
there.
yeah, that's okay.
She's.
We saw her versus
I
Margaret
think she's
last time.
I think she's Australian, but I bet she has one of those dual
Yep.
the dual situations. But
Okay.
she also went against Kravar at Enigma.
Oh,
and she's
yeah,
done
okay.
she's done a bunch of
Yes.
different things. She's definitely in the competitive scene, and we see her a lot.
Yep.
But she I wound up watching her match because she gets a mount armbar quick, and she does the mount armbar that I like.
Yeah.
which
Yeah, Laverne is very, very good. And so,
Yeah.
again, the supercuts that the Flow has out for all the divisions
Yeah.
are great. Go back and watch them. You just kind of it gives you a flavor for the athlete's game. I kind of tabbed through some of them pretty quickly. I'll probably go back and watch them in more length that we have a little more time now since the trial's over. But yeah, Laverne looking very forward to seeing her under 65 kilos. Move on to the last division, the women's over 65 kilogram division. We had Nina Blackman taking that over Sala Simola. This match really there's a 2-point match essentially with 1 negative for Simola at the end. This is a match in game planning.
Yeah.
Sala Simola, it was even, and then towards the end of the regulation time, she throws up a really nice triangle from the guard.
Yeah.
She does that very classic. And Sala is very long.
Yeah.
Like, very lanky woman. She has Nina Blackman in the guard.
Yeah.
She grabs the same side wrist, and she does that really classic push the shoulder and arm away and then shoot the triangle through the arm space you've made. We saw it twice this weekend. I think Keith hits it. That's how he hits it on Fight to Win. But it's really impressive that when Sala does it, because she is so long, this is not something you see folks with this kind of leg length typically able to do. So you just know how good of an angle she had on Nina Blackman, pushes her through, and then Nina does something really interesting where Sala is trying to close this triangle down, and Nina has her arm not across the body where she's going to get choked. She has it in the hip and resting on the hip, the forearm on the hip to prevent from being postured down. And then Nina just starts throwing up defense.
Yeah.
She has 1 foot over, and she forces Sala to hook the leg to try to like posture her down.
Yeah.
Then she starts to posture up. Then Nina throws the other foot over.
Yeah.
And then you see Nina keeps throwing up offense in a way that, and she fights the arm across.
Defense.
It's her defense in a way that keeps Sala like fighting. Okay, she tries to pull the arm. Okay, she tries to get the leg
and
over.
I think Sala almost goes too deep into the I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, rather than thinking about, hey, I want to get this armbar. Which, I mean, this is a problem I have a lot of times. You get like, all of a sudden you have 50 things in front of your face, and you're like, I want to
literally in this match in front of her face.
You're like, I want to do all 50. So you start running through things, and you're not spending enough time, really getting what you need.
In this defensive sequence, that's what I saw here as well, was that you saw Sala like trying to defend both the feet and the arm and the posture at the same time versus going, okay, I'm going to just focus on the arm across, the foot's in my face, I'll pull the arm across, then I'll go to the feet. And Nina did a really good job of just throwing up so many defensive options.
At one point, she has a wrist lock on Nia, which, I mean, Nia must have just been like, screw this shit, I'm going through it, because like her wrist's going back, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. But it's
I missed the wrist lock.
But it's finals, because when she has the arm through, I thought she was going to do the really weird, almost.
It's like Americana,
where you take their elbow and you shove their elbow like in your crotch. And you basically like go down on it.
It's essentially a mirror lock wrist lock.
Yeah, that one. So like she does that, and then after she does that,
me in a tournament, and I hit him with that.
Really?
Yeah.
And then she like
6 to 8 years
ago.
ago.
I mean, it puts so much pressure on your shoulder, especially if you can get your legs to go one way and the shoulder to go the other way.
And it's a really great mirror lock Kimura, Americana, essentially from the guard.
Yeah.
But no, so I was Nia. I keep calling her Nina. Nia, I was really impressed with just the the confidence to just chuck all this defense immediately and pretty much overwhelm Salah from this really good armbar.
And
what was sorry?
No, keep on going.
What was funny is that you saw Nia eventually get both legs over. He got her feet crossed in front of Salah's face, and Salah's trying to look for there's a toe hold that can happen here.
Yeah.
And you see her kind of like looking for it and can't get it. And then you see Nia just basically arching and pulling and basically forcing Salah to have to let go of the triangle to regain position. And then that really turned the speed of the fight around as they went into overtime.
Yeah. And then in overtime, Nia, I think, no, Samola just kind of, I think she tries to throw the kitchen sink. And the problem with doing that was she just kind of missed.
It looked like she got overzealous. And this is the tactical piece of the match. So overtime, in the finals anyway, but if you pull guard, you get a negative against you.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of this, you see Salah Samola kind of come forward like she's going to try
a flying armbar.
No, that was the second one.
Oh, the
like she's going to try something like a Uchimata, and she essentially just sort of lifts her leg up and gives Nia the single leg.
Oh, yeah.
And it was kind of weird. It was like, okay, and usually what you do in that position is once you've given them the single leg in ADCC, you shoot the Kana Basami, you shoot the scissor leg takedown.
Maybe she thought she was going to fall to her butt and then sweep her over her head.
Yeah, it seemed like
or one of those
something.
kind of.
It seemed like she kind of got in the middle of a range when she shot her leg, because she essentially gave Nia Blackman the single leg, and Nia goes, okay, cool, and just runs the pipe and kind of sits her down, because in ADCC, this is a rule that a lot of people get mistaken with, is, well, Salah is the one who initiated that takedown sequence. Yeah, it doesn't matter who initiated the takedown sequence. It's whoever ends up on their butt is the one that gets taken down. For sweeps and stuff, it matters who initiates the sweep, but for takedowns, it doesn't. So because Nia finishes on top here, she gets the points. And so as time rolls down, she's up 2 points, and we see them back to the feet. We see Salah have to make another decision.
Yeah.
And at this point, you're down. She does, I think, she makes a good option where it's like, okay, I'm going to try to pull. She does what it looks like she does one of two things. She either goes for the armbar that Amanda Lev hits a lot, that off the top dropping flying armbar. It basically the exact way we see Amanda Lev hit it. But she's very far against the shoulder. She's not close enough to the shoulder.
Yeah.
And then it seems like she maybe was looking to drop for a knee bar, but she's, again, too far away, much like with the takedown attempt initially. She's just too far away from Blackman to be able to have the contact she needs. So she ends up just pulling for the -1, and Nia's now up essentially 3 points.
Yeah.
And so knows that there's really nothing else she has to do. She keeps top pressure. But it was really just Nia having a consistent game plan, and then those two mistakes from Salah that I think, again, had those not happened, I think Salah potentially would have taken this on that triangle.
Yeah.
Like that overwhelming offense and pretty even section of match in the first time. So it was just an interesting kind of game plan. We see it a lot in the trials as just athletes, they get maybe overzealous or they get tired or, something happens. And you see it, but this is a really interesting match to go back and watch and look for those things and go, okay, potentially as an athlete, if you play it a little differently, it goes the other way. So now we have Nia Blackman taking the over 65 kilos division.
Yeah.
She also beats Mariela Milesic in the round prior to that. Haven't had a chance to see that match yet.
I watched it. It was definitely a good match. And definitely Nia Blackman has a very simplistic kind of old school jiu-jitsu kind of game.
That's, again, at the bigger weight classes for women, that's like bread and butter jiu-jitsu. It tends to be solid for a reason.
Yeah, it's nothing complicated. That's not.
It's not a knock on it.
Not being a knock on it at all.
Like every time we say that, look at Hodger.
Yeah.
X stroke for the baby. X stroke. It's like, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's bad. She has a very old school version of jiu-jitsu. But she's also a brown belt, IBJJF Worlds, Euros, and Pan's gold champion. So very good.
In both the gi and the no-gi. So
Yeah, it speaks to her level.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Very, very fun trials. Anything more thoughts on trials overall?
No.
It was fun. I
fun.
I love watching European
I had a good
trials.
time watching it.
There's a bunch of cool matches to watch. Most of the matches at this point are parted out, so you can go and find them
Yeah.
as you wish. So Go back and watch. There's a lot of fun matches. A lot, again, with always with these trials, there are always big names that get knocked out. You're like, how did he get knocked out? And so we've already watched a couple of those. Of like, oh, that's crazy that happened. Always a lot of fun, really, these major tournaments. So let's move on to the preview section. Let's start it off with Enigma. This is the one I'm most excited about, happening on February 26th.
Which is a Monday, just so you all know. It's a Monday. We don't understand why it's a Monday, but it's a Monday. And I double-checked this like 50 times.
Wait, so this will be...
It's a Monday.
So this is going to come out before next week. This is going to happen before next week's show.
Yeah.
So we should really preview it and recap it. Yeah, okay. Wait.
We are previewing it. We're
previewing it
right now.
It's the correct... Yeah, because next time we will be able to watch it. Ooh. We might have to watch this the following week.
Yeah, we might.
Because it'll be happening depending on when we record the show.
Yeah, it might be happening while we record the show. So we might not be able to have this next week.
$7 pay-per-view, $6.99, which is, I think, for this card, a great price. Again, pay-per-views, I love $5 pay-per-view. I'll pay it instantly. $10, I think about it. $7 is that middle ground where I'm like, for this level of talent, absolutely worth the $7. Yeah. Support people that support and put money into grapplers' hands for tournaments. We have a main event match of Reese LaFleur versus Keith Krikorian. This is a rematch. Miranda linked me the rematch, the first match, which was a 2023 East Coast Trials for ADCC. I believe Enigma uses ADCC rules. I'm pretty sure that they made the decision.
Well, LaFever asked for Keith.
Is it LaFever? Oh, it is LaFever.
Yeah, LaFever. Yep.
I thought it was LaFleur.
LaFever.
Okay.
He asked for Keith at Who's Number One when he won Who's Number One.
Yeah, give him that match.
Yeah.
I mean, Enigma.
Well, he asked for it, but Enigma was like, we got you.
Was like,
we got you.
But yeah, I love organizations going, like, an athlete wants the match, we'll put the match on. Like, that is, it's, anytime an athlete says, I want this guy, I want the next match that athlete has to be against that guy. Like, it's not MMA where you have, like, 3 fights a year maybe you can get. It's like grapplers, if they're willing to compete, somebody set it up. Set up the match. Give them some cash. Set them up and going. You want to talk about the first match? Yeah,
the first match was from 2023 ADCC East Coast Trials. If you look in the background, you see Maine here. He is sitting in the background.
I think the match I'm filming,
or he's filming a match.
I'm filming Cody Steele versus Cody Steele versus someone, I think is who I'm filming. So I have video of this match from across the mat. Yeah. And I think I cropped into it. I had to crop against it for when I put Cody Steele's footage in the interview. But in that interview, you can see.
Yeah. But you can see Maine in the background.
Miranda take a picture. Hey, look at you. And she does an arrow.
And I did an arrow pointed down. So
thanks, Miranda.
If you want to play the game of Find Maine.
Find Maine.
You can look in the background of this match at Flow. But so their original Trials match was, I mean, there's no scoring. I mean, it was a tight match. It was Keith snapping him down and then going to a bunch of different attacks, getting to his back, Reese escaping, getting to legs, Reese trying to go after his legs, and them kind of going back and forth a little bit, going into overtime. And then we have some scrambles.
It was a very, very close match. I think the big thing that wins it for Keith, and for ADCC rules, in which I think this match is happening under, is the initiative. Keith was on the initiative most of this match. And he was the one initiating the leg exchanges. And, like you were just going to say...
he almost takes his back twice. He doesn't get both of his hooks in both times, or he's not squarely on the back. He's like kind of riding on the side a little bit.
I think it's a hook thing. So he's never able to score, but he's in almost scoring positions that he created, not off of initiation from Reese. And so I think that's why it's a decision for Keith. Again, it's a close match, but I think it's for Keith. I kind of think we will see the same thing in this match.
You think so?
I think Keith will maybe wrestle a little more, and I think he's prepared to wrestle, especially with the fight to win match we just saw. Krikorian has a good wrestling game. I'm less familiar with Reese's game. He's at New Wave now, but again, you kind of wonder with the folks in that room how much an individual attention he's getting. Yeah. And that's kind of my question with a lot of the New Wave guys is like we see very little stuff come out of that camp that's not Gordon. You kind of wonder, like, with the DDS team and like all those folks, there seem to be the more, all of them were growing and getting better together. At the New Wave team, we just don't really know the dynamic of that room. A lot of guys like Dominic Mejia, when I interviewed him, speaks really highly of the room. Like a lot of guys are there, seem very happy there. But I'm just curious like the curriculum individually, how much, like, how specialized it is. Like, are they preparing him specifically for Keith, or is he in the room with the rest of the guys, doing ADCC?
He's probably
curious.
around with Taza. Taza's probably around the same size as him.
I think Taza's a little bigger, but yeah, probably pretty close.
Taza and Davis.
Yep.
Asare. They're probably all about the same size. But that might also mean that the three of them are all beating the shit out of each other.
Right.
And no one's really
working the wrestling that Keith is doing. It'll be interesting. Again, I'm not, very few matches I'm going to bet against Keith for.
Yeah.
Like Baby Shark maybe, but like,
yeah.
I've been hot on Keith for years and years and years. I've been following him since he's a purple belt on EBI, and when he won the qualifier for that. Again, more events should have qualifiers. I love to see him. But again, I'm going to go Keith here just because I think that it looks similar to the first match. The initiative that he had,
I think also
he already has a win in the rule set.
I also think Keith is doing a really good job watching his past performances and kind of learning from them. So I think
he's very introspective when he approaches new matchups. We typically don't see the same string of mistakes and errors from Krikorian back to back to back to back. He's a guy, I think, better than most guys in the sport that look at his performances and go, okay, what am I improving? What am I working on? And I think that's where a lot of guys really fail to climb that ladder in the way that Krikorian has. So let's move on to the thing that I am most amped about for next week. We have a $10,000 middleweight Grand Prix. Prix is such a weird word. Here are the names, the big names. There are a bunch of names. 16-man bracket. Luis Carabera. We have Johnny Tama, Nick Ronan, Oliver Taza, David Garmo, John Combs, Jeremy Skinner, Nick Newell, Davis Arce, Jacob Couch, Angelo Caborn, and Caleb Crump. I have no idea how they're going to bracket this.
Yeah, and I couldn't find a full list. This is from their pictures. Hopefully no one's hurt and that we actually get all these gentlemen.
I think this is, I'm going to go on a limb here. I think it's Jacob Couch is your 1 seed. I think David Garmo, I kind of think is your 2 seed. I think Taza is going to be 3. And then Arce, I mean, he just beat Taza, I think is like 4. Yeah. Maybe John Combs is 4. Claiborne's very good, but we don't see Claiborne very often. Caleb Crump we see pretty often, but he just doesn't have those placings at the trials. Just for reference here, I'm going to list all the guys that have trials wins. Tama, I think, has won South American trials. Taza has won European trials before. David Garmo hasn't, but has looked very, very good at all the ADCCs. John Combs, 1 or 2-time ADCC trials winner. Jeremy Skinner, Australian Oceanic trials. Davis Arce just got second versus Tommy Langaker. Jacob Couch, 2023 ADCC trials winner. Claiborne, very, very good. Black belt and Crump. Half of the dudes in this bracket have been to that level and win those trials. Again, I like Couch's game for ADCC. Yeah. He had a level of consistency at East Coast trials that impressed me a lot. But again, so did Garmo. Yeah. Both those guys had really, really impressive performances in the same 88 kilogram division at trials.
I think if we see either of them get super trucked by anyone, whoever does it wins.
Yeah. If there's an upset, it's like that guy takes
it's either the two of them. It's either the two of them versus each other, or let's say Claiborne comes out and just trucks Garmo, then I have to worry. Then I would say maybe Claiborne wins the whole thing, Yeah. Because if you have anybody that gets...
But it's one of those tournaments where it's like, if you're going to be the guy on the day and you take out, you're a lower seed, take out a 2 seed, take out a 4 seed, take out a 1 seed, it's maybe your day. We see plenty of tournaments that happens. I mean, John Combs has famously done that numerous times. Again, this bracket will heavily depend on the seeding. Yeah. It's like, hey, do you put Davis and Taza in the same first round? It's like, okay, well, that very, very easily goes either way. And then, okay, is it Taza versus John Combs hitting each other? Is it Johnny Tama in there as one of the smaller guys in this weight class? Claiborne is a bigger guy. Couch is cutting down to get to 85. Garmo, same thing. Yeah. Taza's also going up in weight. Usually doesn't sit at 85, sits about 70-something. Yeah. There's a lot of X factors here, which I love.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
See how it's bracketed and see how it goes. And like you said, we'll probably won't get that to next week.
Yeah, it'll probably be running as we record the show because it's Monday night.
And the problem is that then runs it into the super week of March 2nd that I won't be here that has like everything under the sun.
We will see how this.
So
how
maybe
this
we'll
works.
figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Hey guys, talk to you guys and think about. Hey guys, can you run it like 2 hours earlier? Like, no, man, I can't do that. I'm gonna move my event 2 hours so you can do your podcast. We also have anything more Enigma.
No.
It's $7. Pay for it. It's worth it. NO 6 we have is in
United Kingdom, Weston Supermart, United Kingdom.
Yep, that is a location in the UK. We have Ashley Bendel versus Raquel Ferreira. We just saw Bendel at trials here in the finals. Looked very good. Again, you run into Margaret Cicerelli, though. It's going to be a rough day. She takes on Raquel Ferreira.
For the under 55 title.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this one's going to go. Again, I love that Enyo is doing more women's events.
I'm hoping that Ashley isn't hurt.
Yeah.
That there is no injury there. Because
it'll be a good matchup, but that happens this weekend as well. We also have some matches that are coming up on Arena Grappling. That is February 24th. That is 2 days before Keith competes for Enigma.
Yeah.
Keith is main eventing that versus Kevin Dantzler. You saw Kevin Dantzler versus Aljamain Sterling on Fury. Fury Grappling.
So Keith and Kevin have it's going to be so Arena does it a little bit differently. They do it in a cage. They do 3 rounds of 5 minutes, but if you get a sub during that round, the round is over and you start the new round.
Yeah.
So it's whoever gets the most subs wins. If no one subs in 3 5s, then they go into OT and there has to be a submission or it's a draw.
Yeah.
So what'll be interesting to see is if somehow there's some kind of somebody subs someone and then they come back and the other one subs the other one.
Yeah.
That would make for a good match. But Keith, we've seen Keith in cage matches like earlier that we were talking about.
Versus Reese.
The submission grappling challenge. We also saw him in Sub Underground back in the day.
Yep, SUG, with Shell's organization.
So it's not that Keith has never competed in a cage before, so he definitely knows how to use a cage to his advantage. I would assume Dantzler being at an MMA gym that he would also know how to work a cage. So I don't know if that'll play into this at all, but it'll be an interesting match. Because we know Dantzler does know how to game people.
Yeah,
we learned that.
Look at the Sterling match.
We learned that with Aljamain Sterling. Yeah. So
it'll be exciting. Again, I'm gonna go. I think is Dantzler. I thought he was bigger, but he's not, is he? I think Keith might be the bigger man in this matchup.
I'm not really sure. Keith always confuses me because I always expect him to be smaller for whatever reason.
Yeah, he cuts a bunch of good stuff. So again, I'm gonna go Krikorian here.
Yeah.
Dantzler has played spoiler a couple of times now. But I just, again, with the frequency that Keith is competing, I would be hard pressed to pick against him.
Yeah.
Especially with the consistency of performance that he has had recently.
Yeah.
Again, fight to win to Arena to Enigma, like back to back. You got to be pretty confident.
And then I think he has.
Going that.
And then I think in a week or two he has not Polaris Grapplefest.
Grapplefest.
Then he runs into Grapplefest.
Yeah.
And that's on March 2nd. So he's run through match after match.
Yeah, he's going against
match.
Dominic Mejia on that.
Yeah.
Like that's
so
Dominic Mejia silver place at trials, like at 66. Like this Keith is on a roll leading up to trials. I hope he doesn't get injured, but I'm not picking against Keith with this level of schedule.
No, I'm not either. And so the pay-per-view is $19.99.
Yep.
It is
a little
on
expensive.
Saturday at 3 p.m. It's not going to be normally they suspend their matches. They're not doing it this time around. It is going to be live.
Yep.
And there's a bunch of other people on the card. If you're local to the East Coast, you know a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm. We used to commentate for Arena back in the day. I was actually one of the first events that Grappling Rewind did some commentary for.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah. So it'll be a fun show. But yeah, that's
it.
Yep.
Anything fun happen this week?
So right before that Arena Grappling card, I'm doing a seminar with Keith Krikorian.
Like 2 hours before.
Yeah, literally 2 hours before.
That's
didn't realize.
Ballsy.
I realized that this morning when I was like trying to put it, because I had it in the notes as running on Sunday, and then I saw the date and I was like, why is the pay-per-view coming out on the 24th at 3? It's not going to happen until the 25th. And then I wound up messaging AJ and I'm like, hey AJ, am I reading this right? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, is the seminar literally 2 hours before the event? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Man, Kokorian's got it laid out. So that's what you're doing this week.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do Saturday. I thought I was doing that Sunday, but now I realize. Hopefully I don't have anything else scheduled on Saturday that I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I figured out that Naga does 10-pound weight classes. So instead of me going to 45, I'm going to 50, and I'm like, oh, that's way easier to make.
Oh yeah, they do 49.
They
do 40
to
49.
Because I made my first tournament. I made 141. And I was like, why? I was like, why is it a weird weight class like that? And I do Naga like I feel like 5 or 6 years I do a Naga. And so it's
fun.
time.
They're fun.
They're always fun because it is just wild. It's always just a wild tournament.
The weird thing about Naga is when you get into Nogi for Naga, they give you a point for submission attempts.
Which I love.
And that's where you get you can just try really stupid wrist locks and just crank points for shit that doesn't even really exist.
Naga's like, hey guys, if he dies, he dies.
Yeah.
And I love it. So I'm thinking about doing that one. I'm trying to heal up a little more before I make the decision, but I'm thinking that's like a month, and I'm like, I could jump back into a Naga. It's been about 5 years. I should do another one. So that's all I got.
Nagas are fun. I mean,
they are fun. I have a bunch of my guys doing it as well that have signed up for the club and for the gyms, and so I'm like, it'd be fun to get everyone together for a Naga.
Yeah.
Like the old days. So
it's at the convention center, so
it's super close. It's like 25 minutes. Which I'm like, you want a belt because you get a belt for your division. Oh yeah.
For gi and no gi.
Yeah.
Once you get the purple, you
last Naga, my last match was against Malcolm Hedman.
Really?
Who would go on to win the world championships a few years later and then go silver before there.
Ellis would go against him all the time, and the two of them used to battle in Nagas all the time.
And the other division was that it was one division above me was then world champion Shane Jamil Taylor.
Yeah.
Because the other TLI guys will just jump into it. Like, you guys are world level, jumping into a local Naga. It's like, why? Because it's cool to win belts. I'm like, it's crazy. So
you gotta do what you gotta do.
I'm in Masters now, luckily, so I'm away from those guys.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. So I'm probably doing that, but I got to heal up a little bit more.
I think I'm in, what is it? It's not even Masters. It's
Executive. Executive 3.
Yeah, I'm like executive by now.
Something like that. Corey's over here laughing at us. Yeah. He's also an executive 3.
Yeah, he's also an executive with me.
3 or 4. 4. He's saying 4 over there.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I got nothing else, Miranda. You got anything else?
No, that's it.
As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, the co-host,
Miranda.
And we are the Grappling Reruns. And that what it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.